Hi there, I am Mandeep Burmi, the owner of Ace Driving School in Manitoba. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to pass your driving test in 2018. 2017 was a huge success for my students. Many students passed their driving test and a lot of them actually passed their driving test on the first try. Keep watching this video if you want to pass your driving test easily. I'm going to show you guys something phenomenal. If you guys watch the entire video and do exactly what I'm going to do in the video, you will pass your driving test easily. Are you guys ready for this? Say yes in the comments below. As you probably know, you can fail your driving test if you have one or more than one critical mistake in your driving test. Now the question is, what are the critical mistakes that cause people to fail their driving test? And how do we avoid them? That is a very good question. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you guys in this video. So let's go in the car and let me show you guys how to pass your driving test. So let's drive for approximately 20 minutes. And we're just gonna drive just like your actual driving test, and I want you to, like, whatever I do in this video, I want you to do exactly same thing in your driving test as well. And I promise you, if you do this in your driving test, I promise you, you will pass your driving test. Okay, and after the driving test, if you still keep doing this, if you still follow the process, you will actually stay safe on the road. Okay, so let's get going. So let's say you're taking your driving test and you're about to exit testing center parking lot. Now as you're driving, before you exit a parking lot, I want you to ask yourself these two questions. Question number one, how do I pass my driving test here? Now this question is very important because it's gonna actually remove all the negative thoughts from your mind. Okay, when you ask this question to yourself, you're not thinking about failing your driving test, you're actually thinking about passing your driving test. Okay, because it's all about 90% of the test is in your mind. Okay, so always remember that 90% of the test is in your mind. If your mind is not working, you're not gonna pass. Okay, there's no way you're gonna pass. Sometimes I get very good drivers. I know I have given them driving lessons and I know they have all the skills to pass their driving test, but when they go for the driving test, sometimes they get very nervous, and when they get nervous, they don't make good decisions, they can't think properly anymore, and then they end up failing their driving test. Lot of time, when people go for their driving test, they get very nervous, and I see they are just going like, oh my god, I'm gonna fail my driving test, I'm gonna fail my driving test. See, they are already feeding negative thoughts in their minds. Okay, so they are already thinking they're gonna fail their driving test, and if you think about that, you will end up failing your driving test. Okay, so that's why I want you to ask this question to yourself. How do I pass my driving test here? Okay, this way you are removing negative thoughts from your mind. Okay, and the second question is, what are the critical errors? All right, so before you go out from a parking lot, you can ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test? What are the critical errors here? Now critical errors here, I know if I don't stop before the sidewalk, if I don't do a full stop, that's going to be a critical error. Rolling stops are always critical errors. Okay, so here first I need to make a full stop before the sidewalk, then I check on the sidewalk to make sure there's no pedestrian, there's no cyclist. Now in this example, I know there is a pedestrian coming from the left hand side, so I'm just waiting for the pedestrian. And if I don't wait for the pedestrian, that will be a critical error as well, because pedestrians, they always get the right of way. So after when now the pedestrian is gone, then you creep forward, then you check traffic. Okay, so you can ask yourself same question here. How do I pass my driving test, and what are the critical errors? So critical errors will be, let's say if there is a traffic coming from the left side, if you don't wait for that traffic, that will be a critical error. So now there's no more traffic. Now you're actually doing your right turn. Then again, I want you to ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? What are the critical errors here? Instead of going in the first lane, if you go in the second lane here, that's going to be a critical error, because you always go in your first available lane. So in this example, this lane is totally empty. There's no construction going on. There's no parked car. So that means by the rules, I'm supposed to be turning in the right lane first. Now let's say your examiner asks you to turn right here. As you're approaching towards this intersection, you ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? Remember guys, this question is very important. Okay, how do I pass my driving test here? This way you're reminding yourself, I need to pass my test. Okay, I need to get this license. This is my day. Today I'm gonna pass my driving test. Okay, and then the second question is, what are the critical errors? So critical errors on, we see a sidewalk here, crosswalk. So we know if there's cyclist or there's pedestrian on the crosswalk, we need to wait for them. If we don't wait for them, that's going to be a critical error. After that, you can look at the sign. Now this sign, it says yield. So we know yield sign means you slow down, check traffic coming from the left side. If it's empty, then we don't stop. But if you see somebody coming from the left side, then we have to make a full stop because they got the right of way. Again, we are checking traffic in the first available lane. Sometimes you have traffic in the second lane, but not in the first lane. That means you can still go, okay? Because if the first lane is empty, you can still go. So here I'm slowing down, I'm checking traffic. As I'm turning, then I ask myself again, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? See, what I'm doing is I'm asking that question to myself pretty much 3 times. Okay, before I turn left or right, I ask myself that question 3 times. I'm asking that question as I'm approaching towards the intersection. Okay, so let's say my examiner asked me to turn right. So I'm going to ask that question before my right turn, and then I will ask myself again when I'm actually turning, and then again after completing my right turn. Okay, and it goes for almost everything. Okay, so roundabouts, left turns, right turns, lane change, doesn't matter whatever you're doing. Even if you're going straight, then again you ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? Okay, so let's keep going. So I will point out the other critical errors as well. So now we are going straight here. So now we see this yellow sign. Okay, then again you want to ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? So we know this sign means school zone is coming up. So 30 speed limit is coming up. Now we see railway crossing sign. Again, you ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? Now we see 30 speed limit sign, right? So that's where the 30 actually starts from. Now you probably won't be able to see this in the camera, but below 30 it says Monday to Friday from 7 in the morning until 17:30, which is 7 in the morning to 5:30 p.m. And it's only September to June. So if you're taking your test on a weekday, then you have to drive at 30 kilometers before you approach the sign. If you start slowing down after the sign, it doesn't make any sense because you're already in school zone, and that will become a critical error. But on the other side, if you're taking your driving test on the weekend, because some locations are open on the weekend, so if you take your driving test on the weekend, this 30 speed limit sign doesn't apply. So that means the speed limit here will be 50 kilometers because we do not see any other posted speed limit sign. Same thing if you're taking your test in September, or like let's say this 30 is from September to June. So if you take your test like in the month of July or August, this 30 speed limit sign does not apply to you. So you just want to make a note of that. Now we see a railway crossing coming up. So we know if the lights are flashing, that means you have to stop because the train is coming. But if the lights are not flashing, then you check on both sides to make sure the train is not coming. So you're always, even as you're driving straight here, you're reminding yourself, okay, I need to pass my driving test. Okay, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? Okay, that's gonna keep you focused on the road. Now we see a green light. What else do we see? We see a flashing hand in this small screen here, right? So as you're driving towards this intersection, you want to again remind yourself, how do I how do I pass my driving test? What are the critical errors? So now the critical errors, if the light changes, okay, as you're going towards the intersection, if you see amber light and if you still have time to stop safely before the stop line, that means you should be stopping, right? Because if you try to beat the light, that will become a critical error. So always use that small screen as a reference. If you see a green light with a walking man sign, that means the light gonna stay green. But if the hand is flashing like that, that means the light gonna change any second. So further down, let's say your examiner tell you to turn left further down. Okay, so that means at some point you have to change lane. Then you ask yourself, before you change lane, how do I pass my driving test here, and what are the critical errors? Then you follow the lane change procedure. You will signal, you will mirror check, you will shoulder check to make sure you're not going to interfere with other traffic when you're changing lane. So now you're turning left on this intersection. As you're approaching towards the intersection, right, you're going to ask yourself again, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? So now what are the critical errors? That depends on the situation. There are a lot of critical errors, okay, but what is the situation that you see right now? Okay, so I tell you what I see right now, okay, and then I'm going to make my decision based on the situation. So I see a green light here. I don't see oncoming traffic. Now there is pedestrian crossing this way, but that pedestrian not going to interfere with us, so we don't need to worry about him. So I don't see any oncoming traffic here. I don't see any pedestrian on this side. Now what's that mean? That means I'm good to go. I don't need to stop behind the stop line because that's gonna become critical error. I don't need to stop in the middle of the intersection because there's no oncoming traffic, there's no pedestrian crossing. If I stop in the middle of the intersection, that will become a critical error as well. See how first we ask ourselves, right? How do I pass my driving test? So I'm staying positive. Then I'm asking myself, what are the critical errors, right, on this situation? And then I look at the situation and then I know, okay, if I do this, that's going to become critical error. So I don't need to do that. Okay. So that's your thinking process. Now the light changes, but remember, I'm already in the intersection. Okay, now if your light changes, if you're already in the intersection, you have to go through. Otherwise, this traffic here, I understand you can't see this traffic in the camera, but there is traffic on this side. If I stop right here, I'm blocking this traffic. They won't be able to go. So I need to clear the intersection. And the light went amber when I was already in the intersection. So now let's say your examiner asks you to turn right on the next intersection. Now you have to change lane again. Again, you ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test? What are the critical errors? Now for lane change, let's say if you're changing lane without doing shoulder check, that can become a critical error if there is a car beside you. If the road is empty, then it's could be a general mistake, but if there is a car beside you and you're moving over to the right side when it's not safe, then definitely that's going to be a critical error. Okay, so we are focusing more on the critical errors in this video, not on the general mistakes. So let's say your examiner said, okay, let's go right here. Okay, then you're gonna ask yourself, as you're going towards this intersection, you're asking yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors, right? So what are the critical errors here? Well, if you go over the curb, that's going to be a critical error, okay? And then we have this pedestrian crossing. If I don't wait for this pedestrian, that's going to be a critical error. Now, now we see a red car here, okay? Now look at the situation here. There is a merge sign, and this car is actually not going. So this car is actually they're wrong, okay? Because merge means you're getting a speed up lane. You need to go in the speed up lane, and then you change your lane if you need to change your lane. So we are turning right here. Now because this car is sitting here, that doesn't give me any other option. I have to wait. Now remember guys, you want to ask yourself again, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical error? So pedestrian is already gone. Now do I stop on the crosswalk? No, that is a bad decision. Right now there's no pedestrian, but I don't know how long this gonna take, okay? Because I don't know if this red car is gonna move right way, or I don't know if it's gonna sit here for like 30 seconds, 1 minute, I don't know. And if I stop on the crosswalk, that means I'm blocking this this crosswalk here, right? And if there's any pedestrian coming, then I will end up failing my test because I'm on the crosswalk. So I need to see if I have enough room behind this car. If you think there is enough room behind this car, you can stop behind the car. Otherwise you just stay here, okay? Otherwise you just stay here. All right, see, that's why you always want to look at the situation and then make your decision based on the situation. Now the red car is moving, now I can start moving. But I know this yellow sign means it's a merge. I'm getting a speed up lane, so I don't need to stop. I just go in the speed up lane, but at the same time, I know I need to go in the speed up lane first, not like the red car. The red car actually went in the second lane, okay? So that's actually another mistake he made, all right? So I need to go in the speed up lane first, and then I can start changing my lanes. So let's say your examiner asks you to turn left on the next intersections again. So then you change your lane. There was a speed limit sign. It says maximum 70. Then you ask yourself, as you're going straight, what are the critical errors? How do I pass my driving test here, right? So you want to stay within the speed limit. You want to change lanes when it's safe. Then you look at the overhead signs. So from the first 2 lanes, they are turning left, and the other 3 lanes are going straight. There's 1 lane turning right, so we are on a 6-lane street right now. So as you're going towards this intersection, then again you ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test? What are the critical mistakes? Okay, this way, guys, trust me, if you are doing this, it's gonna help you stay focused on the road, okay? See, everything that we do in our life, we go through a process. Everything is a process, okay? You're watching this video, what you did? Well, you went through a process, okay, right? Because you went on YouTube first, you're searching how to, how do I pass my driving test, and my video showed up, right? So you're going through a process. You're doing that step by step. Driving is no different, okay? Whatever you do in your life, you go through a process. You're doing everything step by step. And when you do that for, like, let's say 3 months, 6 months, then you don't even think about it, but you're still going through that same process, all right? So same thing in driving. You have to take your time. You have to learn this process and follow the process. It's going to help you stay focused on the road. When you're focused on the road, you're not going to do anything wrong. When you don't do anything wrong, you don't make any mistake. When you don't have any mistake, you will pass your driving test. And when you pass your driving test, you get your license. Okay, so that's how you get your license. All right. So when you're waiting, when you're sitting here, you're waiting for the green light. Again, you're asking yourself, okay, you're not thinking about anything else. All right, you're on the road. You need to think about what's happening on the road. Okay, so you're focused on the road all the time. So again, you're asking yourself, okay, when the light turns green, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? Okay, so we are just waiting for the light to turn green, and I'm just gonna pause the video and just forward the video because this light takes a while. So just give me 1 second. All right, so now the light is green. So now I have to make sure I stay in the first lane, because remember, there were 2 lanes turning left. When I'm turning, if I start to drift into the second lane, in the right lane, that will become a critical error. Okay, so I want to make sure I stay in my lane. All right, so let's say your examiner asks you to go left again on the next intersection. So again, you ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? So now we see, you're gonna see overhead signs coming up. So we see 2 lanes are turning left, so I can go in either one. So I pick this lane here. Now the light is red again, so I'm slowing down. I'm preparing myself to stop behind this car. As I'm doing that, in my subconscious, like as in my mind, I'm still asking questions to myself. How do I pass my driving test? What are the critical mistakes? Now I know if I go too close to this car, this white car, that can become a critical mistake, because my examiner doesn't know what's happening in my mind. He doesn't know, right? Because if I'm going too close to this car, he might be thinking, okay, this person is not going to stop, right? Especially if you're taking your driving test in winter time, because the roads are icy. So you have to make your driving very clear to your examiner. Your examiner should be very comfortable when you drive, right? So make everything obvious to your examiner. So even here I'm keeping my distance from that car. So same thing here, as I'm turning, I'm staying in my lane. If I start to drift to the right lane, that will become a critical error as well. Now I'm driving straight. I'm asking myself again, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical errors? Now I did not see any speed limit sign, so that means I need to stay within the maximum posted speed limit is 50. There was a pedestrian corridor, right? So I'm asking myself again, what do I need to do at the pedestrian corridor? What are the critical errors? Well, if the pedestrian is crossing and if I don't wait for the pedestrian, that's going to become a critical mistake, right? Or maybe the lights are flashing and pedestrian is waiting over there. Pedestrian is waiting for the traffic to slow down and stop, and if I don't see that pedestrian, if I just keep going, that will become a critical mistake. Okay, so let's say your examiner asks you to turn left again. All right, so again you are in the left lane here. Now your light went green. So what do we do? Okay, so write that down in the comments. What do? We ask ourselves two questions. How do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical mistakes, right? Then let's say you're further down, your examiner says we're gonna turn right, so we are changing lane. See what this guy did? So that's not how you change lane. Okay, that was a bad lane change, and that was actually a bad planning, because he's changing lane pretty much at the last second. Okay, so please don't do that. All right, so you're at the same time when you're doing this, when you're going through this process, at the same time you're learning what other people are doing wrong. Okay, because you're focused on the road. When you're focused on the road, it's nearly impossible to fail your driving test. So here I ask myself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical mistakes? So this one, it's very similar to the right turn that we did when we were exiting the testing center, right? The first right turn that we did. So we need to check on the crosswalk here, make sure there's no pedestrian, there's no cyclist coming. And then we look at the sign, it's a yield sign, so that means I only slow down. I check traffic from the left side. Now look at this car. What this car did, he went right in the left lane. So we don't do that, okay? We don't do that, because if you do that, that will become a critical mistake as well. So you always remember, you always go in your first available lane. So you go in your first lane first. After that, you can start changing lanes. So now I came into this lane here. Now I can change my lane to the left side, and I follow the lane change procedure, right? So I signal, mirror check, shoulder check, and when you're doing that, you want to maintain your speed. Make sure you're not slowing down too much. Make sure you're not going over the speed limit. So you need to check all that. And where that information gonna come from? Well, that information gonna come from it's already within you. If you have done driving lessons, you already know that information. You already know what are the critical errors. But when you go for your driving test, you just have to remember. You just have to remind yourself, okay? Because you already have that information, and somehow you just wanna bring that information, okay? Because you want to use that information in your driving test. So when you're on a highway, again, you ask yourself, now you're pretty much going straight, you can ask yourself, what are the critical mistakes here? How do I pass my driving test? Okay, so the critical mistake in this situation will be if I go over the speed limit, that's going to become a critical mistake. Now the speed limit here is a maximum 80 kilometers. Right now the road condition is pretty good, the weather is clear, so that means I can stay between 70 and 80 kilometers. If I go over the speed limit, that's a critical mistake, but if I start driving too slow without any reason, that will become a critical mistake as well. So let's say on this highway, I start driving at 50 kilometers. Now 50 is too slow because the maximum posted speed limit is 80 kilometers. So that means I'm going too slow, I'm going to interfere with other traffic, and that's a critical mistake. So you're always asking yourself these questions, and then you're answering questions based on your knowledge, based on your previous experience, and that's gonna come from your driving lessons, or maybe you spent a lot of time behind the wheel, like you were driving with your family members, with your good friends who know how to drive, who have good knowledge about the rules of the road. So that's where the information comes from. So let's say your examiner asks you to turn left again on this intersection. So remember guys, as you're going towards the intersection, you need to ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test? What are the critical mistakes? So you're doing that 3 times on every single turn, okay? You're doing that as you're going towards the intersection, you're doing that when you're turning, you're doing that after completing your turn, okay? So 3 times. It's important because critical mistakes are, you can have critical mistake before the turn, You can have critical mistake when you're turning, you can have another critical mistake after the turn. Okay, so that's why we need to ask that question 3 times. How do I pass my driving test? What are the critical mistakes? Okay, every single turn, 3 times on every single turn. Same thing when you're going straight, you're asking yourself that same question. No matter what you're doing, you're changing lane, you're doing parallel parking, everything, right? So you're always asking that question. So we are just waiting for the green light here. After this, we're gonna go in the residential area, practice a little bit in the residential area as well, and I will explain you what are the critical mistakes in the residential area. So I'm just gonna pause the video here, and because again this slide gonna take a little bit time, so we're just gonna forward the video. So just give me 1 second. So now let's say your examiner asks you to turn left at a roundabout. So as you're going towards a roundabout, like before you go in the roundabout, you're gonna ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical mistakes? Okay, so again, remember guys, the first question, because the first question is to prepare you mentally, okay, because it's all about mindset. Okay, so when you ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here, you're thinking about passing your driving test, not failing your driving test. Then the second question is, what are the critical mistakes? Then you look at the signs. Okay, so we see this sidewalk sign, so that means if there's pedestrian crossing, then we wait for the pedestrian. Then we have this yield sign here, that means we need to check traffic coming from the left side. If we see traffic that's too close to us, then we let them go. So in this example, the cars are still quite far, so I should be able to go. Now we are turning left, so that means I need to take my third exit, so I'm going towards that exit. Now before I exit, I need to signal right to indicate I'm going to exit from a roundabout. Then again I ask myself here, how do I pass my driving test? What are the critical mistakes? So we see another crosswalk here, so that means I need to look for pedestrians, make sure there's no pedestrian coming, then I'm going straight. Again I ask myself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical mistakes? Now I look at the speed limit sign, so the posted speed limit sign is 50 kilometers. I'm also looking at this car. I have the right of way, but you still want to be careful because sometimes you do see impatient drivers on the road. So now we see this bus is actually parked. So again, it's a totally different situation. You're gonna ask yourself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical mistakes? So going around the bus, now the bus has a hazard light on, so he's not gonna move, but he's pretty much in my lane as well. So that means I need to signal around the bus. So I signal left shoulder check, but at the same time I'm maintaining distance from the bus. If I start going too close to the bus, that will become a critical mistake. Now there's a stop sign. See, I was able to see this stop sign here, but this one was kind of like hidden. But if there's stop sign on this side and on this side, so that means probably I'm gonna have a stop sign as well. So I'm slowing down. Now I do need to pull back to my side. If I don't do that, that will become a critical mistake as well. This one is a 4-way stop sign. So let's say your examiner asks you to turn left. Now how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical mistakes, right? So this white car was already there, so that means I need to let him go first. If I try to go before this white car, that will become a critical mistake. Now the cyclists are going in the other direction, so you know, they are already gone, so I'm good. Now I see cyclist here, so again, totally different situation. I ask myself, how do I pass my driving test here? What are the critical mistakes? Because if I do something wrong, I can fail my driving test here. Okay, so what would be the critical mistake? If I go too close to the cyclist because it's not safe, then it will become a critical error. So now let's say, what are the general mistake? General mistake would be if I don't signal shoulder check. Because now I'm moving over to the left side, I need to indicate, I need to signal shoulder check. Then I pull back to my right side. Now we are in a residential area. So how do I pass my driving test in residential area? What are the critical mistakes? So you're going through that information. Again, So I think you guys got the idea. So that's what you need to do in your driving test. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you are, if you're taking a G1, G2 driving test or G driving test, right? So it doesn't really matter. You're in Toronto, you're in Manitoba, Vancouver, you're in States, you're in UK, Australia, New Zealand. Doesn't matter. Okay, you're going through a process. You're asking these questions, and again, I promise you guys, if you do this, you're gonna stay focused on the road. You're not gonna make any mistake. If you don't do anything wrong, you will pass your driving test. So when you're going around these parked cars, you're asking yourself those two questions again: how do I pass my driving test? What are the critical mistakes? Okay, because driving test, as I said earlier, 90% of the driving test is in your mind. Okay, it's all about your mind, your mindset. You need to feed positive thoughts in your mind. If you're just thinking about failing, oh, I'm gonna fail my driving test, I'm gonna fail my driving test, that means you will actually end up failing your driving test. But if you're thinking about passing your driving test, you say to yourself, how do I pass my driving test? I'm gonna pass my driving test. This is my day. I will get my license today. And that way it's gonna help you stay focused on the road. And when you're focused on the road, you will pass your driving test. So here, like, we see totally different situation. Now kids are playing on the road, right? So that means I need to slow down here. If I don't slow down, if I'm still driving at 50 kilometers here, that will be too fast, going too fast for this situation, and then I will end up failing my driving test. Now there's another kid here. Looks like he's gone, but I still need to be cautious. So that's it. That's it for this video. If you guys are going for your driving test, I wish you good luck, and happy New Year to everyone. Today is January 1st, so I did this video just for you guys. So happy New Year, and again, I wish you good luck, lot of success in this new year. If you guys have any question, you can post your questions in the comments below, and I will do my best to get to your questions as soon as I can. So thank you very much. Again, guys, this is Mandeep Burmi from Ace Driving School, and if you're going for your driving test, do exactly same thing what I did in this video, and you will get your license. If you stay focused on the road, you follow the rules, and so you will pass your driving test. All right, thank you very much, and I will see you guys next time.